again, everybody. Welcome into UnAnchored Boston. And as always, our show is sponsored by Cold Springs RV, your destination for all things camping. And where? We're in New Hampshire, of course. And by the great George Gray at George Gray's Lexington Toyota, 409 Mass Ave in Lexington. Speaking of greats, we have a great guest today from the Ohio State University. I've got two Ohio guys going against me today. I don't know if I'll be able to tolerate the whole show with two guys from the state of Ohio. But Bob Lobel, take it away. Introduce our guest.
Well, I lost my audio.
You lost your audio?
Oh, shut up. Hold on, I lost my audio.
This is how it goes, Tim. Two Lynch and Lobel. Can you imagine if we were in charge of the engineering department at Channel 4 and Channel 5? We'd never get on the air.
No,
it's a good thing there are other people behind the cameras.
It's a good thing. Right. It doesn't have to be in focus or anything like that, but they're there. Canton, Ohio. Okay, what were you going to say about Ohio, Lynchy? I missed it.
No, two people from Ohio in this show. Lobel.
Did you ever hear of Apple Creek, Tim? Did you ever hear of Apple Creek and Worcester and that area?
Sure, yeah. I used to. Well, I grew up in Canton, so
I know that.
Obviously, spent 4 years at Ohio State, so we used to head down almost through there. Yeah.
Right on Route 30, right across Route 30. It goes from Canton to Massillon to Worcester to Mansfield to Ashland or whatever.
Yeah, and then you pick up 71 and head down.
Yeah, to the Ohio State University. Oh, stop it, Mike. We talked about Harvard long enough, and then don't start getting me on Harvard because I have enough stuff on you right now that I could really, it's all right, but we'll take the kinder and gentler road. Foxy,
I'm still trying to figure out how Mike got into Harvard.
I'm trying to figure how he got out.
That's even better.
Right. Those legacy laws were pretty good back then. So I love the fact that you grew up in Canton, and you obviously played Massillon, right?
No. I actually played in a much smaller school called Glenwood, which is no longer even there. Glenwood is now a junior high school. And the name of the high school is Glen Oak. So Oakwood, they built another school in the region called Oakwood, and then so we had two schools for several years, and then they put them both together.
Well, that's pretty. I was sure that it would have been Massillon would have been on your schedule, but the Massillon sophomores were on our schedule in where I went to. Seriously, I'm not lying. We played the Massillon sophomores.
If you grow up in Canton, Ohio, and you don't play football, they're going to look at you kind of funny.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? How that was one of the things I was going to ask you about. Obviously the Pro Football Hall of Fame is there, but Miami of Ohio, the cradle of coaches. What is it about that area that is so drawn to football? It's just kind of amazing.
Well, I think it's just, obviously the Pro Football Hall of Fame is there, so it's supposedly the birthplace of professional football in the United States. So they take their football serious. But to be honest with you, growing up in Canton, the local paper there is called the Canton Repository. And when you open up the sports page, unlike the Boston Globe, the very first thing on the front page of sports is always high school sports. It goes high school, then it goes college, and then it goes professional. They could care less about the professional teams.
Wow. You went to why does Ohio State? Why do you guys call it the Ohio State University? Like, we don't call it the Harvard. We call it Harvard. We don't call it. Why do you have to call it the Ohio State University?
Because of Ohio University. See, we don't want to be confused with a MAC team. It's the Ohio State University. It's the official state university of Ohio. I mean, is that so hard to understand?
Columbus, Ohio University is in Athens. They're two different.
That's correct.
Right.
And that's a private school, frankly. So, I guess it's public too. Yeah.
It is public. Yeah. Anyway, 4 years. Well, here's the thing. You're a co-captain your senior year. You played under Woody Hayes. You and I have always had fascinating conversations about Woody Hayes. And I know you had, like a great career in the NFL, but I've always been fascinated by your 4 years at Ohio State because you played in 4 Rose Bowls. I mean, you may be the only guy other than maybe your teammates that played in 4 Rose Bowls. How many did you win?
Well, you had to ask that question, huh?
I'm not sure. I thought you were going to say we won all four.
Unfortunately, no. We won one. And
I'm sorry I asked the question.
Yeah, and we actually lost the national championship twice.
Oh, God.
And unfortunately, the year we won, trying to think, I think we had that year we beat UCLA, which was my senior year, but we had a tie during the regular season. So back then there was no playoff. Everyone just kind of voted to see who the best team in the country was. So because of that tie, we ended up finishing second instead of first in the country.
Well, I'm sorry I brought it up. Then I thought the four Rose Bowls was a pretty damn good,
Harvard won the Rose Bowl in 1920.
Oh, please,
beat Oregon.
They played the Sisters of the Poor.
Oregon. We played Oregon.
They the Ducks or the Beavers?
The Ducks.
Okay.
And it's up in Harvard Stadium in the end zone. It has Rose Bowl, 1919 season, Rose Bowl, January 1st.
Where's it say? Where's it put the MIT balloon?
And what year was that?
Yeah, what year was that? What century was that?
Yeah, let me ask you, Tim. I went to school with one of my roommates. His older brother, he's older than we are, played for Woody Hayes, and he said when they were going to the Rose Bowl, about an hour out of Pasadena, the trainers came down and started taping ankles on the plane. And the minute they get off the plane, there was buses on the tarmac. They took them right to practice, and they didn't stay in one of the hotels that the Rose Bowl committee reserved for them. They stayed in a monastery.
Yeah, I remember it well. We stayed there as well.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you know you were going to be staying there? Tell me about it.
And it was a little scary, I don't know. He loved that monastery, and you'd hear the damn bells would ring every hour on the hour, which wasn't the best thing. I think you'd be better off in a hotel. But Woody had his ways, and no one was going to change him. And I always say that going to Ohio State and playing for Woody, he made the rest of my life pretty easy.
Why did you go there? I mean, I know it's a state school, and I understand the mentality, but you chose to play for Woody Hayes. That's going into the fire. You could have played for a lot easier situations. Yeah,
the reality was I was not. I got hurt my senior year in high school, and I had to have I actually ruptured a kidney and had knee surgery. So I really only played about 4 games, and so I wasn't really heavily recruited. And I was getting recruited by Kent State. I actually was almost committed to go to Kent State when I think Ray Dorr was the coach there. And so it's mostly mid-American schools. North Carolina recruited me, Toledo, Bowling Green, Ohio University. To be honest with you, Ohio State was not recruiting me. And it pains me to give her this much credit, but my wife actually went to Ohio State the year before. So and we were not married, obviously, but we were certainly dating. And she worked in this little breakfast spot in Canton, Ohio, waiting tables during the summer. And there was an older gentleman who was there that would always come in almost every morning for breakfast. And he'd always strike up a conversation with her, and I don't blame him for that. And he claimed that he was asking about her boyfriend, and she said, "Yeah, he plays football, and he's thinking about going to Kent State or whatever." He goes, "Well, has he ever considered Ohio State?" And she says, "Oh yeah, I'd love to go to Ohio State. That's because that's where I went this year, but they're not recruiting him." And he goes, "Well, let me make a couple of phone calls." And to be honest with you, he did. He says, "Oh, I'm friends with Woody Hayes," and she's thinking, "Yeah, that's a crock of shit." But oops, sorry.
No, it's all right.
We're good.
And so then about a week later, I get a call, and George Hill, who was the defensive coordinator, shows up at shows up at my school, and they said, "Well, would you like to come?" And I'm going, "Oh man, I'd love to come." And we sent them some film down, and we, to be honest with you, they had a really bad recruiting year that year. Although we did have Archie Griffin in that class, so you
two-time Heisman.
Yeah, can't say it was too bad, but realistically, we only had 12 guys on scholarship, and which is unusual because normally you have about 18 to 20. And somewhere, I don't know, around my junior senior year, there was this list that became available that showed the ranking of where you were on that list, and I was number 12, but it worked out.
Did you play safety in high school? Well, you must have played both ways in high school. And
yeah, in high school, you never step off the field. I mean, you're on you're on the kickoff team. If you kick off, you're on the kickoff return team. If you're receiving, you're on the punt team, the punt return team. If there's a safety, you're on that. So, and you're playing offense and defense both. So, yeah. And so, I'll be honest with you, when I went to Ohio State, we just showed up for the first day, got our pads, got our numbers, and it wasn't necessarily a good sign for me when I got my number, because I looked around and I think they gave me number 47, and I looked around and there were two other 47s, which didn't bode too well, because they must have had 150, 130 guys when I was trying out first off. And when they went to then they do this whole big team picture, and then they say, okay, we need all the freshmen over here. We're going to take the freshman picture. And I said, oh, okay. So we go over there, and he said, all right, give me all the freshman offensive backs. So I look at this group that goes over, and Archie was one of them. And I knew we ran the I formation, and I'm not going to be a fullback. I was going to be a tailback. So Archie's there. Woody Roach was there. There were like 6 running backs that went over, and then they said, all right, the defensive backs, you go over there. And one guy went over. And I said, let's see, 6 for one position, 2 4 positions. I just became a defensive back. So
smart move.
You could have gotten into Harvard with that logic.
Yeah.
Well, it was good enough to get you drafted in the first round in the NFL.
Yeah, that was interesting. I'll tell you what, no one was more surprised than me. People had said that I could possibly be drafted, in the first 3 to 4 rounds, but I certainly didn't expect to be drafted in the first. I think it was 21 at the time, and I wasn't even at home. I was doing some type of thing on a TV show for a charity, and the TV station got a nice scoop because I was there in the studio when they got the call. I wasn't home, and
wow.
Debbie, my wife, said, "Well, he's down at this studio. You can try to get him there." And they got me down there, and so that they got this one station in Columbus got a very nice scoop getting me in the studio as soon as I got drafted.
What do you think made you such a good player? Other than, you weren't a big guy. I don't know that you're unnecessarily fast. Maybe you were, but what attributes made number 48 Tim Fox a first round draft pick and gave him a decade in the National Football League?
That's hard to say. I think
I know, that's why I'm asking you.
Some of it had to do with obviously your upbringing. My father was a coach. He coached a little bit of football, but mostly basketball. But I think, growing up, I played every sport, and we didn't concentrate on football, certainly. I played football, basketball, track, tennis, and I think all those sports tend to make you a better athlete. And when you start looking at what the attributes of good defensive backs, you have to be a pretty good all-around athlete. You have to be able to run backwards, forwards, turn, do all those things. And then I enjoyed hitting. That was I always felt like I was not the biggest guy and the strongest guy, so I was always trying to hit the guy the hardest. And when I was my first year in Pop Warner, I didn't play till I was 12, but our team won the city championship, which was a big deal in Canton. But about halfway through the season, some of the parents on the other teams tried to get me banned from the league because 12 people aren't hitting that hard. Well, I was hitting pretty hard, and they didn't like that. We had a bunch of kids get hurt, so unfortunately.
Wow.
My dad was a high school coach as well. He coached 3 sports, but he used to always, he may have told you this when you bumped into him, but he loved to bring up the fact that Woody Hayes always maintained that the best athlete he ever coached was Tim Fox. And my father reminded me of that over and over again. I said, I wasn't that bad myself, Dad. He said, no, but you were no Tim Fox. He said, but
Wow.
that's quite a moniker, quite an honor to come from Woody Hayes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that is. I'm not even sure if I'd ever heard that before, but that's impressive. But, well, he used to get mad at me because I was somewhat of a free spirit, and he was certainly a disciplinarian. But in my senior year, I remember I always said if I scored a touchdown, I'd do a front flip in the end zone, and everyone said, well, I don't know if Woody's going to like that. That's probably not a good idea because he always hated the end zone celebrations, and his big thing was act like you've been there before and you belong there. And so, but I mean, as a defensive player, you don't have that many opportunities. So I had an interception return for a touchdown, and I had a punt return for a touchdown. And after those, I did the front flip, landed on my feet, and then spiked the ball. And I remember that the following Sunday, we're in the film room, and the play is coming up, and they run the play, and the cameraman kept the thing going, and he got it on film, and Woody shut the projector off, and I'm going, oh shit, this isn't going to be good. And he goes, God damn it, I hate celebrations, but that's an athletic move. That's an athletic move.
Maybe that's why you're the best athlete you ever coached.
Yeah, it could be, but I don't know. There's been an awful lot of great athletes that played for Woody. So I think another time I got in trouble from him because we were out in the Rose Bowl, and we used to stay at we always stayed at the Huntington Sheraton Hotel. That was during the 2 weeks before the Rose Bowl. Then, as you mentioned, we always went to the monastery the night before the game. But they had this walkway on the second floor that went by the deep end of the pool, and it was about, I don't know, probably 10 feet of a sidewalk from the walkway and then the pool, and
pretty tempting.
Somebody made me a bet or something, and so I got up on the railing and dove over the 10 feet and into the deep end of the pool.
Oh my God.
And word got to Woody on that one, and that wasn't good either. That was I got my own room in the monastery for that one.
But your relationship with him over the course of your 4 years there had to be really good. I mean, it had to be almost a continuation of father-son relationship, being the influence that coaches have over their players in that situation. Yeah. It's unique.
Yeah, it definitely had a tremendous influence on the rest of my life. Not only in football, but just in life, because he really wasn't a great football coach. I mean, we ran the most basic offense you could run. It was the old 3 yards and a cloud of dust offense, and I think Cornelius Green was our quarterback my senior year, and I think he went like 18 for 36, not in a game, but for the season. And we only threw the ball 36 times in 11 games. So he wasn't a big aficionado of fancy offenses and stuff, but when it came to life's lessons and discipline and doing the right thing, and he made us do stuff for the various charities around town. He was just a tremendous builder of character, and he was adamant, absolutely adamant about players graduating that are on scholarship. And he's would always say, if I can't get you through school, I'm cheating you. You're playing football for me. I'm getting you an education. And you did not want to. I mean, he would look at every player's grades every quarter, and if you were having a bad time in a subject, if you were getting a D, or if God knows you were failing, you did not want to go in front of him, because eventually you had to go to study table, and if you were doing poorly enough, you'd have to sit in his office, and he'd be all right, goddamn it, bring your books in here, bring what subject? History. Okay, all right, where are you? And he'd take the book and he'd start reading to you, and you got to listen now. You got to listen. And what chapter? Sit there and listen to him read the chapters, and then heaven forbid you failed after that, you'd be in big trouble.
Wow.
I'm told that he was a great historian. Was he a lot of military leaders?
We heard more World War II stories, and oh God, he just hated the Japanese. I mean, we heard about Pearl Harbor so many times, and in so many bad. He called them bad names. Then we're not gonna. If I heard this once or heard it 100 times, we're not gonna let those Heine bastards sneak up behind us and hit us over the back of the head with a sack of shit. I don't even know what that means, but he used to say that all the time. I think that was the truth.
Let me just take a break here and get us on the road with a Cold Springs RV camper. Okay, give us a break here, Tim.
All right, I'm right now.
This is good. This is really good. We're going to pick it up where we left off, but there's a fantastic selection of motorhomes available at Cold Springs RV, and they're in Ware, New Hampshire. Go. Tim's in Hull, and he's got a place in Marco Island in Florida, and he's been out west and everything else. So he's done his share of traveling. But you got to check out the deals that enjoy the pressure-free environment of what Cold Springs RV can do to this. They have a large display of pop-ups for summer camping fun, and we got a lot of summer left. Labor Day is a long way off, so still get ready for a great August and September and October coming up. So learn more online at coldspringsrv.com. Make it a summer to remember, and it's going to be a summer to remember. This is a show to remember with a camper from Cold Springs RV. And that's Cold Springs RV in Ware, New Hampshire, which is just west of Manchester, Goffstown. And Tim, Mike's got a great question for you that pertains to Cold Springs RV and what we call the Lobel cruiser.
So you remember John Madden had the Madden cruiser because he was afraid to fly? He took it everywhere. Yeah. Well, the good people at Cold Springs RV, they're still in the production stages right now, but they're going to design a Lobel cruiser. That Lobel can take, and he's gonna let our guests on the show borrow the Lobel cruiser once it's finally built by our Cold Springs RV and drive cross country. The question is for you, Tim Fox, who would you like to have riding shotgun? Someone you can have a conversation with as you ride cross country in your Cold Springs Lobel cruiser RV. Anybody, past, present, alive, or dead?
I know it's a tough question.
Wow, yeah. I mean, anybody?
Anybody.
No. Even Margot Robbie.
I don't know. Maybe Donald Trump. Who knows?
Why not?
Hey, they'd be entertaining,
Yeah.
What a great answer. That's I'd have to say that's a real. That's got to be in the lead right now. A lot of Belichick's, and we had a couple Parcells, but no, the Donald Trump thing is out there.
Oh yeah, well Belichick, if you rode with him, he wouldn't talk to you the whole way.
Yeah, he wouldn't say too much.
No,
Parcells would be entertaining.
Yeah, Tuna would be great. Yeah, he was.
You guys had him, right? For were you around when Tuna was an assistant?
He he was our linebacker coach, and he coached the inside linebackers, and he actually brought a whole new kind of defensive structure to the Patriots that one year, and he was good. We enjoyed him. He was tough. I got to tell you, he was very tough. He used to give me a hard time all the time about, we used to, back in the old stadium after games and stuff, we used to be able to go up to the upstairs. They had that club up there for the, I forget what it was called. So after games, we'd go up there and we were allowed to have a couple of cocktails, and Parcells was no stranger to cocktails himself. So we'd be up there after a game, particularly after a win, and we'd imbibe a little bit. And after a couple of cocktails, I'm sitting next to him, and he goes, Foxy, you're a pretty good guy. You're a good athlete, But I really think you don't work that hard at it. I think you need to spend a little bit more time, take the game a little bit more seriously. I mean, you're always screwing around, and spend some time in the weight room, get a little more workout to you. And I looked at him, and I had just enough beers, and I said, "You fat fuck, you have no idea what I do to work out, what I do, how much I work. And I watched you after practice take an ice cream bar and go sit in the friggin' sauna, and you're going to give me a hard time about not working hard enough." And he goes, "Well, you might have a point there."
I don't know, Foxy. Everybody picked on you. All these coaches, for some reason, who was you say Woody Hayes wasn't that great a football coach? X and his O's. Who was in your mind that you played for was the best coach that you ever had?
Probably, and they weren't even probably a head coach. I had my defensive backfield coach when I came to the Patriots my rookie year was a guy by the name of Larry Weaver, and I learned more from him than any other coach in 12 years playing defensive back.
Wow.
And he actually left the Patriots, and then I had a parade of defensive backfield coaches with the Patriots. We had a different one almost every year, and none of them were worth a shit. They didn't, they could tell you where you needed to be. Well, on cover 2, you got deep half. Yeah, okay, I know that. But tell me what I need to do when I get there. How do I play better when I'm in deep half? And Larry was really the only one who could do that. And then he actually went to San Diego, and he was the one that orchestrated the trade for me to come from New England to San Diego. And he was then believe it or not, the offensive coordinator in San Diego under Don Coryell. So he was a big influence on my professional career. I mean, he taught me a lot of things that, I could talk to guys today that are playing in the National Football League that would have no idea of some of the stuff that he taught me. I mean, it was pretty incredible. But the NFL now is athleticism. It's all about being an athlete, and it's not necessarily about technique. It doesn't matter how you look when you're doing it, as long as you get it done. So he was probably the best coach I ever had.
I want to go back to Parcells. Were you around when he got the nickname Tuna? Remember how that happened?
Yeah, because he was fat. I'm trying to remember. It might have been. Trying to remember. He was named by his own linebackers. He was a linebacker coach, and they started calling him Tuna. And he was not a physical specimen, that's for sure. And he liked to eat. And like I said, and it didn't help that he was eating ice cream in the damn steam room in sauna.
Now Steve Nelson elaborates a little bit more on it because he was one of the linebackers. He said that after practice they would all tell him, "Oh no, we don't have to run laps after practice, Bill. We don't do it that way." And he said, what do you think I am, Charlie the Tuna? You know, I think I'm going to buy that
Oh, really?
hook, line, and sinker, and that's how we got the name Charlie the Tuna from the Sunkist Tuna commercial, and that's
All right.
how. Yeah, by the time you guys came to the defensive backs, he probably had already been nicknamed Tuna.
Yeah, I just thought it was because he was somewhat overweight.
Maybe it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Tim,
But I'll tell you what, he when he came to the Patriots, he made a distinct difference in our linebacker play, and I don't think anybody that was associated with him was surprised when he became a successful head coach, because he reminded me of Larry Weaver in his terms of technique and knowledge and how he was coaching the guys, instead of just reading the playbook and telling them to go back to page 47 and read what it says. So, he could help you actually become a better player.
Tim, I don't know. I know that the National Football League has taken great pains to improve the offense and made rule changes. They've done all kinds of things to put more offense back in the game and put more pressure on guys like you in the safety position or playing defense. What do you think has been the most significant thing that has made the game a much more offensive game?
Well, probably the two most significant things is the inability to hit guys. I mean, we used to be able to hit a guy in the head, and hopefully, in those days, you would actually try to knock a guy out. It's not that you wanted to hurt him, but if you could get him on the sidelines and you got to play against the second string, you've done your team a service. So, there was it sounds crass, but I mean, we used to try to knock people out of the game. I mean, but you can't do that today. You'll get thrown out of the game if you do that. And then the ability to hit players at the line of scrimmage. I mean, Lester Hayes was probably the most famous bump and run player of all time, and he was very adept at getting in your face and playing bump and run and jamming you at the line of scrimmage and then running with you down the field. Those days are gone. I mean, you can't touch the receivers anymore. So not only can you not touch them at the line, you can't touch them, or you can't really hit them like you'd like to hit them after they catch the ball. So they can be somewhat fearless, going up for a high ball or worrying about running the slant pattern, because they don't have to worry about getting hurt, or they don't worry about it. And occasionally it happens, but not very often.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Let me ask you about the Chuck Fairbanks era, and it came to a crashing end. But how good was that team in 76, 77, 78?
Well, that 76 team was the best team I ever played on. And I played on some pretty good teams, both in San Diego and LA. But it had to me, it had the right combination of experience with enthusiasm. We had 3 number 1 picks that year. It was Mike Haynes, myself, and Peter Brock.
Wow.
And we had a lot of really good young players that had been drafted ahead of us. And to me, that was the best team I played on. And frankly, we should have won the Super Bowl that year. That was the year we got screwed in Oakland after we just spanked Oakland during the regular season. And then, unfortunately, it was my first year in the league. And I remember riding home on that plane after that Oakland game thinking, man, this isn't anything like college football. I think, I honestly thought that game was fixed. I just thought that there was no way that they were going to allow us to win that football game, and the refs did everything in their power to keep us from winning it. And that was, I never felt that way again, in the next 11 years. But after that game, boy, I was convinced that there was just no way we were going to win that game. But that was by far, I think, my best team. And you were asking about Chuck Fairbanks, and Chuck was an excellent coach, but more so the executor of coaching than being an X's and O guy. He hired the best assistants he could hire. You know, there are a lot of head coaches that are afraid to hire really good assistants because they're going to make them look bad. And we really had, I think, at one point in that, if you look at that 76 coaching staff, I think 5 of those guys went on to be head coaches in the NFL. And so he would oversee the whole platform and then let the coaches do what they do. And he was very good at it. And he was, again, more of an administrator than an actual X's and O's coach.
So tell me about the end when Billy Sullivan discovered that Chuck had been negotiating with Colorado, and he got fired. I think it was before the Miami game on the road, right?
Yeah.
And legend has it that you had 2 pregame. The offensive coordinator gave a pregame speech, and everybody got up and get ready to charge out in the field. The defensive coordinator had to give a speech too. It was kind of a confusing time. But run that by us.
Yeah, it was. They had dueling pregame pep talks, and that was definitely a strange time. I don't know if that it will ever happen again in the NFL, but to have the offensive coordinator run the offense and no head coach. But to be honest with you, things really didn't change that much because that's the way we ran every game. I mean, the offense coordinator did the offense, the defensive coordinator did the defense, and Chuck just kind of oversaw everything. So the only thing we were missing there was Chuck overseeing things. But that was, that was a very strange time, and it was certainly disruptive for that team. I think, ended up bringing in or leaving Ron Earhart at the helm, and I think that was a good call because it was between Earhart and I think Hank Bulla was our defensive coordinator, and Ron was much more of a head coach than Hank Bulla would have been, and I thought Ron did a good job. I mean, he went through a lot of there was a big transition there when everything turned over and the team was being turned over, and there's just a lot of distractions going on, and it was unfortunate because we had a pretty good nucleus at the time and something we should have been able to build on.
And Fairbanks came back and coached the Oilers playoff game, right?
Yes, he did. He did come back. Yeah, even though he was fired, he came back, and but everyone could tell his heart wasn't in it, and that was a very disappointing loss for us because we really felt like we had the better team then, but it didn't. You got to win the games to be the champs, and we didn't win that one.
Timmy, I got a question also, a serious matter about CTE and the BU study, and I know you've been a really outspoken person about that, but I'll let Mike do the George Gray commercial first, and then we'll get into that. All right. So you know what's coming next. So I give you,
that's all right. I'll forget it by the time you get back.
It's a joke, but it's not a joke. And that's all right. Lynch, take it away.
If you're thinking about a new car, go where Lobel and Lynch go. Go see our friend George Gray at George Gray's Lexington Toyota. We've been customers for years because we know George Gray will treat you right. They are a family-owned and operated dealership that we trust, and you can trust as well. Go see the great George Gray at Lexington Toyota, 409 Mass Ave in Lexington. George is a big sports fan. You'll probably wind up talking about the Patriots for 45 minutes, and at the end he'll say, oh, yeah, and here's the price in the car, and you'll shake hands, and you'll have yourself a deal. So there you go. All right. Do you remember where we were, Tim?
Yes, the best I have. Memory, organization, all these things. CTE is a very serious matter, and certainly as it applies to former National Football League players and hitters like yourself. And who wouldn't be concerned about this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I am concerned. I notice. I've noticed for years that I have some deficiencies in trying to remember things more. More of an issue with the the most recent things that just happened. I forget things. I mean, like I can remember football 20 years ago, 40 years ago. Those memories are all still very vivid. But it's just doing things in your everyday life. You know, where you put your car keys, why you walked into that room, what you were. You know, you walk in the room because you with a purpose, and then you get in there and you go, what was I going to get in here? I don't remember. So, yeah, I've been concerned about it for probably the last 10 years. And I certainly feel a progression that is not progressing in a good way. The unfortunate thing is there's just not a lot that the NFL can do for you. And, you know, they have this so-called program, and they have so-called compensation for players that struggle, but it's next to impossible to qualify. You know, I've been tested, and I said, well, you know, you have some deficits, but you know, we think you're fine. The problem is they test you at that point. They don't know where you were to begin with. So, you know, you may end up testing average or below average. But if you started way above that, that's a big drop off. So there's no, what they should do is baseline testing for everybody that plays in the league, and then watch them, unfortunately, as they deteriorate or if they deteriorate. And I think, you know, they're doing a decent job of trying to eliminate the head issues by trying to minimize people getting hit in the head. But it's still an intrinsic part of the game, and it's going to continue to be a problem. And I think it's going to be more of a problem in the next few years with the guys of my era, and a little bit obviously after, and even a little bit before, because these rules hadn't been put in until, you know, the last 5 to 10 years. So I think we're going to see players continue to deteriorate. And, you know, I feel like I struggle with it on a day-to-day basis. You know, like me talking to you, you probably wouldn't notice it, but I struggle. I definitely struggle with certain things.
You talk to your teammates about this? Like Steve Nelson, I know, is very concerned about it as well.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it. We have to try to remember to talk about it. You know, they're all very similar situations, and the question is, you know, what can you do about it? And, you know, there's ongoing research trying to determine, you know, what can be done, what might help. They still haven't definitively defined a definition of CTE. I mean, they can't diagnose it when you're still alive. They can't tell definitely what your brain looks like until you're dead, and they cut open your brain and they do an autopsy and they look at the brain cells and they can see, you know, at what level you were at. And, you know, I encourage players to donate their brains. I've donated mine so that they can, you know, when you hear these complaints from players as they're progressing through life and then progress through death, and then you can actually compare what they're saying to what their brain looks like, then you can try to get some type of idea of, all right, if this guy's complaining of this, he probably has the same stuff that this guy had, and we've already confirmed it by looking at his brain. So it's a complicated subject, and it's one that, to be honest with you, the NFL does, you know, they'll give it lip service, but they don't want to tackle it because it's a huge liability for them.
Let me ask you, Tim, what did you wear? A suspension helmet, a water helmet, foam pad helmet? Did it progress as it went along? What can you remember?
Yeah, it progressed for years. I mean, you know, in college and for the first couple of years in the NFL, I played what they called it a suspension helmet, which what that meant is you had straps that went to a little pad on the top of your helmet that was attached with a shoestring.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? That shoestring breaks about half the time when you hit somebody really hard, and now your skull is going against the plastic, and that doesn't work out too good. Yeah. So you go back to the sidelines, and they get another shoestring out of some kid that's not going to play. You take it out of his shoe, and they restring your helmet, and then they put you back in. And you don't know what down it is or what yard line you're on, but you're back in the game. So
it was Riddell made that, right? Riddell had
right. Yes.
And then there was
a helmet. Then they went to the water helmet that had compartments that when you hit it, it would squirt water into different areas. And I tried that one,
right?
That one broke. So
with the ear pump or the water?
The air, yeah. Well, guess what? The water pump broke on me. You come to the sideline soaking wet. The air, you pop those very easily. That's so. Then they went to this different levels of foam. A hard foam, a medium foam, and then a really soft foam, and then you put it on. And that was supposed to be that was the last thing I wore. God knows what they're wearing today. I actually looked at my my grandson is playing Pop Warner football in Rentham, and I looked at he had his helmet here at my house the other day, and I looked at the helmet. I said, "Oh my God, this helmet literally weighed 20 pounds. I don't even know how you could play in this helmet, but it's the latest and greatest, and hopefully it protects his brain."
Have you been in touch with BU as their study? They reached out to you. I know since you've had.
Not for a while. I went through that testing years ago, and I used to communicate with. I'm trying to remember the guy that was running the program. But I
can't remember his name either, so don't worry about it.
If I was a little more coherent, I probably could remember his name. And there was a one specific doctor that was kind of leading the charge, but I think that has, to a large degree, unfortunately, has been taken over by the NFL, and so it's been kind of pushed to the side.
This is kind of a morbid question, but you said you donated your brain, but who have you donated it to?
The BU, whatever that is. I assume it still exists, although I haven't had much contact with them over the last 3-4 years.
I'm sorry to have to even bring it up, but it's just such a fascinating subject, and it really has gone it really hasn't been talked about much in the last couple of years, but it's got to be a concern to people like yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's by design, believe me. They've made the changes in the league that they think will help alleviate that situation, and they won't have the same problems that they have with players of my genre. But there's a lot of guys my age that are, it's like a ticking time bomb, just kind of waiting to explode. I mean, one of my best friends is a guy by the name of Billy Johnson, who played for the Patriots back in the 60s, and he can't tell you what day it is. And it's unfortunate. He's the happiest guy I know because he doesn't ever care in the world, which is great. But he'll ask you the same question every 30 seconds and forget that you ever answered the question. So it's I look at him and I kind of model myself after his progression to my progression, and it's a scary thing.
Last time I was with him, he stood behind me and pulled my pants down. We were at Davio's, I think.
He probably got a kick out of it. He got a kick out of it. You're lucky he didn't do it twice.
I'm going, what the hell just happened? My pants are down around my ankles, and he was laughing his ass off.
Here's some of the greatest memories, Mike. I don't know. Tim, I certainly want to reassure you that you did a fabulous job with us today. So, and I'm very conscious of your concerns, but boy, I didn't see any of it in our conversations here. I think
we're talking about things 40 years ago. Don't ask me what I did yesterday.
Well, hey, I'm not that much older than you are. Lynch is the same thing, but we got the same problems too. But
I'm the same age. 53 you were born, Tim?
What's that?
1953? Is that when you were born? 53?
53, that's correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's when I was born too. Yeah. So yeah, we're in the same boat.
Probably older than me because I'm November.
I'm September.
That's
Okay.
it. There
Why
you
don't you guys swap birthday cards?
go. You old fart, but you know what? We're still that guy over there. He's got us both beat.
Let me go back to the Oakland game, okay? Can I run back? Can I just go back to the Oakland game, the Villapiano Ben Dreith game, right? That's what we're talking about.
Yep. Sugar beer Hamilton. Sugar beer.
Tell me why you feel the way you did about that going on the plane, going back.
Oh, I got to remember all the different things. I mean, there were, first it was the Ray Hamilton roughing the passer, which was just a complete joke.
That's the Ben Dreith call, right? That's the Ben Dreith
right.
call.
Yeah. That call would be made today, no question, but it was never made back then. I mean, he was just trying to block the ball and came down and happened to touch him in the head, but it wasn't it was a glancing blow. It was nothing more than that. But there were even more than that. There was a fumble on the goal line, and we had recovered it, and they said the ball was dead, and it clearly was not dead. It just was a painful game to play in because just every call went against us, just every call. And I wish I could remember more specifically some of the other ones that. But I remember there was something that had to do with Russ Francis. He got called for something that was just ludicrous, and we kept getting called for holding, and they were holding like crazy. That I'm telling you, that game was fixed. I've never felt that way again for the rest of my career, but we were just not going to win that football game.
That's unbelievable. I think it's a significant point. I'm really glad we had you on here today. Let
me ask you one question. There's always a guy that you never want to tackle because he's the hardest runner and the most punishing runner if you're a defensive player. Who was it for you in the NFL that you never wanted to see come at you one-on-one with the football?
That by far was Earl Campbell. Because, Earl was so big and strong. He probably weighed 40 pounds more than me, could run as fast as I could. And, most times with backs, particularly big backs like him, when you come up to make the tackle, you don't want to hit them head on because it's going to hurt and you might have to leave the game. So what you do is you come up with one shoulder or the other shoulder, and that running back will instinctively see that you're on this side and he's going to go to that side, and you can cut him off at the pass. But you couldn't do that with Earl because he was too fast. So if you came up on one side and you gave him that side, he could get right by you. And, oh, God, I remember one of the worst missed tackles I've ever had in the league was on the goal line playing them in that playoff game. And we were down I remember it, man, like it was yesterday. We were at the closed end of the stadium, and they ran an off-tackle play, and it opened up, and it was me and him head on. And I knew we were right at the goal line, and we were 2 or 3 yard line. And if I gave him a step, he was going to get into the end zone, even if I made the tackle. So I had to take him head on, and he hit me head on and literally knocked me on my back, stepped on my chest, and then ran into the end zone. And it was the most embarrassing missed tackle I ever had in my whole career.
Yeah. Well,
thanks for bringing it up.
Who's the toughest guy you ever played with?
What's that?
Who's the toughest guy you ever played with on the same team?
On the same team, I would say probably Nelly. Nelly was he took a licking, boy, and he just kept playing and kept playing and kept playing. And when he went out the one year, Billy Matthews took his place, and I love Billy, and Billy was a good player, but he was no Steve Nelson. And we missed his athletic ability, his fierceness, and his leadership. It was tough. I think at that point I had to make the calls, and that was always a bad idea.
Yeah, it's always great to have, if you're a DB, to have a great linebacker in front of you. You make less tackles, but you stay healthy longer, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That was the year. That was the year I led the team in tackles with 120 tackles. So, of course, we were 2-11, so that's not saying much. Or 2-14. That's what it was.
Did the ownership, the unstableness of the ownership ever bother you guys, or did it ever filter down to you?
To a degree, only when it came down to negotiating contracts. It was always a struggle to get money out of the Sullivans. I mean, because it wasn't there, so they were dependent upon year to year that the team would do well, so that they could make payroll and that stuff. So it was negotiating a contract was always a struggle. I remember I had a 3-year contract to begin with, and that was a very tough negotiating. And then in my 6th year, when that contract ran out, that's when I got traded, because they didn't want to pay me what anywhere near what I was, could have gotten in the open market. And that's when San Diego made the trade. Oh, sure, we'll give them that much money. That's easy, but it was too much for the Patriots.
Well, this was fascinating. Oh, by the way, Tim, guess where Lobel went? I saw a picture. He went and saw the movie Barbie this weekend.
It doesn't make me.
How was it?
You know what? It was a damn good movie, really. Despite the fact that you couldn't take your eyes off of Margot Robbie, it was a hell of a movie. It was really interesting, to tell you the truth. Based on your daughters. What's that?
Based on your recommendation, I'll take my 2 granddaughters to see it.
I think that's a great thing. That's a great take. I think it'd be good for all of you. Yeah, it's great. Good move.
That's why I'm wearing pink today in honor of Barbie, in honor of Lobie went to see it.
Yeah, good move, Tim. That's a good move.
Should I take my grandsons as well?
I think absolutely. I think they need to see this movie too. No, Michael, stop it. I'm telling you. Do you see it, Mike?
No.
Okay, then. What? You're out of the conversation.
Well, you're a movie critic, right? You're everything. I'm just,
I'm just saying, his grandsons would benefit as much as his granddaughters would. It's a movie. You know what? It's about the doll Barbie, but it's got much more social implications than that. Okay.
Did you ever think we'd be sitting here, Tim, talking about Barbie?
Mark,
with Lobel and Lynch, huh?
You got to see the movie, Michael. I'm just saying.
I will. I'm going to
the price for admission alone.
I'm going to take all 4 of them, but it's probably going to cost me about $50. So
well, that's what you got to worry about. I know it cost me that, and and we had dinner beforehand, so you can just imagine.
Would you have like mac and cheese or what?
Spark nachos, the usual stuff.
Just don't let Billy Johnson pull your pants down while you're
Jesus, Mike. Hey, Tim, great job. Thanks so much.
You're very welcome. And the only reason Mike remembers that is because he was so embarrassed.
Michael, I promise you I'll never do that to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, it's harder to get him down these days.
It is.
He's no yeah. Good job, buddy.
Awesome.
All right, thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Yeah, great job.
Good. Bye, everybody. We'll see you next week on UnAnchored.